what is the proper unit of theater history? Is it an actor's career? Is it a playwright's corpus? Is it a specific production? Is it an individual city? Is it an individual theater building? And I think this digital work has really made that question very poignant for me. That we're more likely to tell stories of people who are, for instance, marginal to a network graph of Broadway than people who are actually central. And we can look at an example of that later. Seasons are incredibly important in theater, theatrical time, because they organize the availability of spaces. People book their theaters for this season. You can have it from then to then, you can have it from then to then, you can have it from then to then. Then we'll book next season. Producers work, and I'm working on these 3 shows this season. The season is hugely important. Season's very absent from our theater history. It's present in our chronicles of what happened. We say, this season, these 5 shows open, and this season, these 20 things happen, and this season, Sarah Bernhardt did this. But we don't think about what the season is and what thinking seasonally might mean. When you start thinking about industry, the problem of boundaries starts coming up, and this takes me to the second point. Where does the industry end? Does it end with everyone who works for the production, everyone who works for the theater? What about everyone who works for the theater owner's company? What about everyone who works for the diner next door where everyone goes and gets snacks after the show? What about, where does the industry start? Where does the industry stop? This is a tricky question. This is a boundary question for me. When you go back and look through the theater scholarship over the past 50 or 60 years, maybe even longer, and you look for articles about the economics of theater or about successes and failures, they're very dependent on either picking a year here and a year there, or taking arbitrary units of time. So to be more clear, there's a wonderful, wonderful volume by 2 economists named William Baumol and William Bowen called The Performing Arts, the Economic Dilemma. It's written in the 60s, and it develops the idea of what's known as Baumol's cost disease, about the expenses of the performing arts in relation to the rest of society due to what he calls a wage gap. One of the points of data that they develop is they look at the number of roles available to actors in non-musical plays on Broadway in 1 year. I think it's 1947 to 48 season. And then they look again 20 years later, 30 years later. And they say, here's the change over time. Point 1, point 2. It took them a while, I imagine, to go find all those cast lists, count through all those people, and develop that data. So they just picked 2 points. With the click of a button, I get 100 years. I get 100 years. It's great. We can really see the trends. You can see the movement. You can see the aberrations. You can see the lines sloping.